All right, hello Algebra 1 Honors. Well, today we're going to look at solving percent problems. And here's the thing, a lot of people know, because percents are such a big part of our lives, a lot of people know the relationships with percents and can use them. But often a lot of us don't know how to manipulate them in other directions, okay? So what I'm going to show you today is how you can rewrite any percent problem as a proportion, which we've been studying, and then you can solve any percent relationship that you're investigating. So without further delay, there are many ways to solve percent problems. But you can always use proportions to solve them. Basically what I was saying earlier. And this is the setup that we're going to have. I'm going to show you here in a second. You can always solve a percent problem by using this proportion. And it's percent over 100 is going to be equal to is over of. Now this may seem a little bit strange until we've done a few examples of this, but you can use this proportion to set up any sort of percent problem. Now, something that we need to know, this percent right here, using this proportion, you don't change the percent to a decimal. So this formula is set up that if they give you a percent, you leave it as a percent. Oftentimes with problems, you are forced to change the percent to a decimal, divide it by 100, is what you're doing when you change your percent to decimal. But notice the dividing by 100 is already built into this proportion. So you just put the percent in just as you see it, which makes it, just a little bit easier. All right, so let's look at an example, shall we? Let me see, I think I've got room right here for an example. The question is, what percent of 60 is 9? Now again, if you are familiar with percents and you are confident with them, you may know exactly what to do here, but I'm wanting to familiarize you with this proportion so that you'll never be stuck. You'll always know how to handle things. So again, you may know how to get this answer right away, but I'm going to show you how to use this proportion. So it's asking what percent. Well, since we don't know what the percent is, I'm going to use X. We don't know what the percent is, but it's percent over 100 equals is over of. Well, it says what percent of 60, so the of is on the bottom, is 9. And so this is the setup. So to solve this, you can actually just get X by itself. You can just multiply by 100 on both sides and you'll be done. Or you can do like we've learned to do, and that's to solve any proportion. You can multiply by both denominators. Either way you want to do it is fine. I guess I'll multiply by both denominators. Just for kicks. I'll get 60x equals 900. And then you divide by 60, both sides, division property of equality. And we get So with a percent, we don't really necessarily want an improper fraction. So we'll just divide it and get a decimal. Oh, but we didn't even have to. Our answer is just 15. Now be careful here. It says what percent of 60 is 9? The answer is 15%. So I encourage you to go ahead and when your answer is the percent, go ahead and write it in. Now technically though, since it said what percent, if you just wrote 15, I would be kind of forced to count it, right? But I'd like for us to answer these properly and put the unit on there. Okay, so there's one example. And again, that's one that you probably, a lot of you could have answered without using a proportion. Let's try a couple more. Next example, what number is 30% of 90? What number is 30% of 90? Well, if you know how to figure that out, that's awesome. But let's practice writing this formula. Are we given the percent? We are. So we get 30 over 100. Percent over 100 equals is over of. It says what number is? That's our unknown. And what are we of? We're of 90. And this time I'm just going to multiply by 90. Both sides, multiplication property of equality. And just like that, I'm going to get x by itself. And then over here, we're going to get 2,700 divided by 100. And the 100 will divide into it cleanly. And our answer is 27. So 27 is 30% of 90. And there you have it. Again, some of you may have realized that you can change this to a decimal, multiply, and you're there as well. Let's keep going. 72 is 62.5% of what number? Now, this is one that I've found most people that deal with percents have a little bit of difficulty with. You may have known how to solve these other two, but this one I've noticed kind of throws up some roadblocks. So again, I'm going to show you how to solve this with using that handy proportion. Percent over 100 equals is over of. So we're given a percent of 62.5. Now you might be tempted to change it, but don't change it. Over 100 equals is. It says 72 is, but then it's of what number? So that's where our variable is. And when we have our variable in the denominator, I would encourage you to multiply by both denominators. Multiply by x on both sides, multiply by 100 on both sides. We end up with 62.5x equals 7,200. Divide by 62.5, division property of equality. And I'm going to grab my calculator again. And I get 115.2. 115.2. And then double check. Is this a percent that I should have on there? Nope, it's the what number. Is a decimal okay? Yes, it is. The decimal is okay. And we're done. Let's take a look. I think this kind of makes sense when we read back through. It says 72 is 62.5%. So this is 72 is part of some whole amount. So 72 is 62.5% of 115.2. I think that answer makes sense because 72 is a part of this whole amount. I think it makes sense that the 115.2 is bigger. Okay, so we've done 3 examples. Let's do 2 real world application problems. And then I think it's time for you guys to practice. And the practice is on the Canvas. There's a ratios and proportions assignment that I think I have in there. I'll double check. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll do 1 word problem over here. If we've got some room. I think we do. So for our application problem, we have dinner at Zio's. And I think Zio's is still open. There's one in Springfield, I think. Dinner at Zio's was $28. So I don't know, maybe you got something really expensive, or you're there with a date or something like that. The question is, what percent of the bill is a $4.76 tip? Dinner at Zio's was $28. What percent of the bill is a $4.76 tip? So with the word problems, you got to be a little more careful with using the proportion because it won't always be overtly using is and of. Sometimes you have to make sense of the problem. But it's pretty clear that we're trying to find a percent here. It says what percent, so I'm going to go X over 100. X over 100 is equal to is over of. So it says what percent of the bill is a $4.76 tip. So $4.76 there is. And our of is the total amount that they gave us here. Dinner at Zio's was $28. So it didn't say of specifically, but we got to kind of think it through. What's the big, the total amount that goes in the of spot? And I tell you what, I'm just going to multiply by 100 to solve this. Multiply by 100. And I'm going to grab my calculator, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and divide by 28. And then save what's in my calculator and multiply by 100. And I get plain old 17. Now let's double check. It said what percent of the bill is that $4.76. So I'm going to put percent. It's a 17% tip. And I think nowadays they say that you typically should leave between like 15 and 20% is what they say is kind of normal tip rate at a restaurant. But it just kind of depends, I suppose. Well, how do you feel about that example? Let's do one more to make sure we've got this. There might be a bit of a twist to this one. Let me see if I remember. I got a problem that I'm thinking about. Maybe this is the one. But for our last example, it's another tipping problem. It says you want to impress. You want to impress and tip 30%. Oh, okay. On a dinner that cost $46.50. All right, talking a little bit of money here, aren't we? My goodness. And now the question is, how much will you pay? Okay. How much will you pay? Now, this is a little more involved question. One way to do this problem is to set up a proportion and find out what the 30% is, how much that is. But after you do that, to find out how much you will pay total, you would then have to take that $46.50 and add it to whatever the tip amount is that we solved for. And that's a perfectly fine way to solve that. And hopefully that kind of makes sense. Another way that you could think about doing this, and I don't know if this makes sense or not, but you could think of it as the total that you pay is going to be 130%. You got to pay all of this plus 30 more percent. That's 130%. So there's, and then you only have to solve one problem and get your answer. So I'll go ahead and set this up the first way just to make sure, but I want to implore that there's another way to think about this. So we've got percent over 100 is equal to we don't know how much the tip is, over 46.50. And I'm just going to multiply by 46.50, multiply by 46.50. I'm running out of time, I gotta hurry. And we get x is equal to, got my calculator. I get $13.95. But then to finish this up, to find out how much we will pay total, we take that $13.95, add it to the $46.50, and it turns out that you'll get $60.45, using the magic of my notes here, $60.45. So there's percent problems, solving them using ratios. Hope this helps you out, and the practice is on Canvas. Thank you so much.